Hey guys, I'm Jessie Sorrell, and for this in-service presentation, the topic I chose was failing forward. I'm so excited that I selected this topic because it has been such an encouragement to me. Failure is never easy to talk about or accept, but after looking at the materials in John C. Maxwell's book, Failing Forward, Turning Mistakes into Stepping Stones for Success, I have such a different perspective on it, a different outlook that's way more positive, and I hope that you get the same kind of thing that I got out of it because it was just really helpful. And I think this can be beneficial learning to anyone that wants to grow professionally or just any type of growth at all. So, before we get started, I'm going to throw out our learning objectives so that you know kind of what I expect from you. So I want the learner to be able to recognize the difference between failing backwards and failing forwards. And I also want you to be able to identify a time in your life where you or someone you know have failed, but success or opportunity has come out of that failure down the road. So now I want you to just think of the word failure, and if you had to define it, what would you write down? You can write it on a piece of paper or you can just think about it. But I'm going to give you just a couple seconds to kind of ponder that. If we were in person, I would call on some people and get their definitions. Unfortunately, we are not. So I'm going to tell you what I found in the dictionary. The definition, the official definition of failure is 3 words: lack of success. That's it. I was really surprised when I saw this definition because typically the word failure comes with so much weight and it has such a negative connotation to it, and it can be so big for so many people. They can alter big plans or change life courses based off of failures and defeat and mistakes. However, when you see a 3-word definition in the dictionary for it, it doesn't seem like such a big deal. And so now we're going to talk about all the possibilities that can come along with failure. And again, we're going to talk about that book that I mentioned earlier, Failing Forward, Turning Mistakes into Stepping Stones for Success by John C. Maxwell. And he says it's not how you get to that point that you receive a fail or a failure or you make the mistake or the actions that you take leading up to that event. However, it's what's important and what really defines the growth that comes from that experience is how you react to it. And according to him, you have 2 ways to react. You can either fail backwards or you can fail forwards. And the thing to ensure the most growth and the most positive way to handle the situation is to fail forward. So I'm going to go through a list of ways that you can fail backwards and ways that you can fail forward. So first, let's talk about failing backwards. A way that you can do that is if you only expect success in the future and you never expect to fail. Failure is inevitable. It happens to everybody at one time or another. If you expect to get everything 100% right 100% of the time, that's just unrealistic thinking. And even if it were true and possible to do so, where would your learning and where would your growth come from? It would be so much harder to move forward and expand as a person if you're always right, if you're always perfect. So, expecting that you will never fail is not the way to go about it. On the other side, and the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to go into situations underconfident with no faith or no confidence that you're going to be capable to do something. You need to expect success at some point. If you know that you're going to fail, why even try? You have to go into it and try your best. And the mind is really powerful. So if you go into the situation thinking that you already know the outcome and it's not going to be a positive one or in your favor, then you're not going to put all that you have into it. And chances are it's going to turn out the way that you think it's going to, in a negative way or in a way that results in a failure. repeating the same mistake. So this presentation is encouraging you to fail sometimes and making sure that you realize the importance of failure and the positives in failure. However, if you've made this mistake before, you should learn from it and you should grow from it, and it shouldn't be a repetitive thing. If you make it multiple times, what are you gaining? You're not doing the self-reflection that you should to move forward. Blaming others is another way to fail backwards. This is never beneficial for any party involved. Even if the direct actions that resulted in your failure came from someone else, it's still your failure. You got that. You have to own it. You have to take care of it moving forward. The biggest way to fail backwards is to quit altogether. This is the biggest no-no in the book from John C. Maxwell. If you do not continue and if you do not persevere, you will never reach that goal. And you started after this goal, so it has to be important, and you need to keep going. Never quit. Try a different way, or take a break and come at it later when you have a fresh mind. So now let's talk about failing forward and ways that you can do that. With each mistake, take it as a lesson and actually learn from it. Dissect the situation and look at what went right and what went wrong and what you could have done differently. Take responsibility for your actions. So this is the opposite of blaming others. We talked about this with failing backwards. So if you want to own your mistakes and you do take responsibility for it, that is failing forward instead. Knowing that failure is part of the progress. You have to see failure as vital to get to success. For every success you have, there is going to be 10 failures that led up to that. And people that fail forward realize this, and so they accept their failure a lot easier and a lot quicker because they know it is part of the process. Attack it with a positive attitude. Know that just because you failed this time doesn't mean you're going to fail every time. And always see that glass half full. Take new risk. Just because something didn't work out one way doesn't mean something else wouldn't work out a different way. And just because you didn't get somewhere going one way doesn't mean there's not another alternate route you can take to get to your destination or that goal that you're going towards. Always try new things. Always take new risk. And then the last one to fail forward is perseverance. If you take one step, be prepared to take that step right afterwards. You have to keep going, and you have to build upon every decision that you make, whether at the end of that decision it's a consequence that's negative or appears negative, or a consequence that's positive and pushes you closer to that goal. So now I want to share my screen with you, and I want you to view this video. It is actually a motivational speech by Will Smith. It's just 2 minutes long, and he talks about failing forward.
Love this one. Fail early, fail often, fail forward. It's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. When you go to the gym and you work out, you're actually seeking failure. You want to take your muscles to the point where you get to failure, because that's where the adaptation is. That's where growth is. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed. They extract the lessons from the failure, and they use that, the energy, and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. Gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're gonna fail. The reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. You're getting to your limit, getting to your limit, getting to your limit. You can't lift that. You can't do that. Until you get to the point that all of a sudden your body makes the adjustment, and then you can do it. Failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. So fail early, fail often, fail forward.
So I thought that was a good little video that just from a familiar face that said people that are very successful have many failures. They have more failure in their past than they do successes. And to be honest, the future probably holds the same. There's going to be more failure in the future for everybody. And we can take that and we can run with it because we know now that failure can be positive. But I'm going to share just a few more failure that turned into success stories of some more familiar faces.
Love.
So this first box here is Walt Disney, and he was actually fired from Kansas City Star. And the editor told him the reason that he was terminated was his lack of imagination and his creative writing. So he didn't have creativity in his writing, and that just seems silly to me because he is responsible for all of these child films that were huge and have shaped childhoods across the world. So I thought that was interesting. And then Oprah Winfrey, she also was fired from her first TV show or TV role. She was an anchor, and they said she was too emotionally invested in her stories. And now she is successful, and most of her fame and success comes from the emotional connection she has with her audience members and guests that she has on her talk show. And then we have Lucille Ball. She was known as the Queen Bee of movies. That was her title because she could only get roles in second tier television. Second tier television was programming that was not shown as much, didn't make as much money. It wasn't the big time. But she persevered and she kept going after her dream of being a famous actress, and CBS picked her up for a leading role in a new sitcom, I Love Lucy. And 70 years later, it's just as big of a hit as it was when it premiered. And then we have Henry Ford. His reputation was ruined from failed business in the automotive industry. But one man took a chance on him, and they were partners for a while. And he was able to prove that he had learned from his mistakes, and he proved a lot of people wrong and became known as one of the biggest names in the car and truck industry today. So while I finish up, I'm going to go ahead and show you my references. However, at the end of this presentation, I want you to leave a comment below, and it can be a personal story of yourself or someone that you know, or if you can't think of anything, you can share a celebrity story. But I want you to share a story of a time that a failure turned into success or an opportunity came out of that failure. So here are my references. So now I want you to think of how at the beginning of this presentation, I asked you what your definition of failure was. Has it changed? I hope it has in a positive way. Or if you already knew the concept of failing forward, I hope that you learned more and that you got something from this presentation. I definitely did when I was making it. I want to challenge you to see failure as a positive thing and a potential for growth. And I don't want you to put it in a negative light anymore or let it put you down in the dumps when you receive a failure or you make a mistake. I want you to see it as a vital part of the puzzle to get to where you're going, to get to your goal. It's just part of the journey, and it can be as beautiful a part as you make it. And also, don't forget to leave the comment. And there's also going to be a Kahoot link that is provided to you. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a good day.